Welcome to the Aging Well Firefighter, the podcast for first responders, our families, and the communities we serve. Whether you're on the front lines or standing with us, I'm here to help you fight wisely and age bravely. A personal training client once asked me why I would bother entering a race that I knew I wasn't going to win. And if you're a runner or a triathlete, you probably asked yourself that same question. Why do I keep bothering to enter races that I know I'm not going to win? Now, this client played semi-pro football. So for him, competition was all about the scoreboard. How many touchdowns can you get? But for me, it's never really been about the podium. Well, it's never been all about the podium. Racing for me is about something deeper than that. And today on the podcast, I want to share why I keep signing up for races that I know I'm not going to win. Yeah, I've done a lot of events, and I've taken home hardware at relatively few of them. Now, the wins that I have had, I'm really proud of. But I'll also say the races that I've done where I haven't had wins, some of those I'm really proud of as well. And that's because I think the real finish line isn't the finish line. I think the real finish line, for me at least, is about connection and not just the competition. I want to share 3 stories about races that I've done that weren't wins on paper, but were wins for me nonetheless. One race, I made a new friend in a half marathon. I want to talk to you about a triathlon I did with an athlete who was cramping up on the course and a flask of pickle juice that I just happened to be carrying. And I want to tell you another story about a nickname that I earned on the trail. And through these stories, I want to show you how shared experience and empathy and a little friendly, what I'll call co-opetition, can change everything. So, first story. Back in September 2013, I did a marathon in the Milwaukee areas, in the northern suburbs, a half marathon. And I went in having a time goal, but not an aggressive one. I mostly wanted to have fun running in an area that I hadn't run before. So I went out, controlled my pace on the way out, which is probably a smart move for a half marathon. And in the first couple of miles, I met and struck up a conversation with someone named Susan, who had driven out from Grand Rapids, Michigan. And she came out from Grand Rapids just to run that course that day with her younger sister, who, as it turns out, had run way far ahead of us. She was much faster than we were. But Susan wasn't letting that bum her out. She was extremely positive, and her level of positivity and her level of encouragement for people on the course just really stood out to me. And I loved the conversation that we had had. And it's not necessarily the content that stands out to me. It's how meeting Susan made me feel. You know, we talked about running. I remember we talked about our faith and our careers. We had a few laughs at God's sense of humor and the unexpected places that he leads us. But what really struck me about Susan was that she wasn't in it for speed. She was there for the experience. She was there to share an experience with her sister. And now that her sister had run ahead, she and I were sharing an experience together. Walking out of that race, I thought to myself, you know what? People were meant to run in tribes. We were meant to run together. We were meant to share experiences. And if I just put my head down and raced without noticing who and what were around me, I would have missed out on a really meaningful experience. I finished with a decent time, and I mentioned I didn't win really anything aside from the finisher's medal and the banana at the end. But the social payoff of that race was worth way more than a medal could have ever been worth. And connecting with Susan that day and being able to let go of a time goal and not worry about how fast I was going to finish taught me a lot about racing in general, and taught me a lot about myself and about the importance of connecting with other people. And Susan's positive attitude just spilled over and filled me up and was able to influence me and the rest of my race, really. And I think this story really answers that question I got about why you would bother signing up for a race that you're not going to win. It's not about shaving minutes off of my time. It's not about bringing home some bling. It's about the people that I meet. It's about the stories we share out on the course. And it's about the sense of belonging that comes from moving together, from sharing experience. Sometimes the best part of a race, in my opinion, is not the finish line. It's the company that you meet along the way. And I've made friends, true friends, on race courses. I want to tell you about another story back in June of 2017. It was a few years after I met Susan, and I was racing in a half iron up in High Cliff State Park, Wisconsin. I'd gotten through the bike portion, the swim portion, the bike portion, and I was on the run with about 5 miles left to go. It was a hot day and humid. That race was in tail end of June, and it was unseasonably warm. I was coming through a section of forested trail on that course when I saw another athlete there. He had his head down, he was leaning against a tree, and honestly, he was looking pretty sick. And my first responder instincts kicked in, and I stopped to check on him. He said he was doing okay and that his legs were cramping really bad, which I had had a problem with on courses in the past as well. And I learned over the years racing triathlon that pickle juice helped me with that. So I carried a vial of pickle juice with me on the bike, and my strategy was always to finish that vial of pickle juice on the bike during a hot race and carry an extra one with me on the run course. Now, the one that I took on the bike was doing its trick. I was doing just fine, but I had that extra flask with me, so I offered him pickle juice from that flask. And he had never tried that before and kind of raised an eyebrow at it. But when I told him that that was my secret weapon, he said, yeah, he was willing to give it a shot. So I waited there while he downed it, told him to give it a couple of minutes, and I wished him a good race and went on. The whole exchange took maybe 2 minutes. But here's the twist. Like 2 or 3 miles later, the dude goes zipping past me. And I try to catch up to him, but he is just booking it and finishes about like 20 seconds ahead of me on my pickle juice. So I went back to my transition area where my bike and all my gear were, and I'm packing things up, getting ready to go grab a bite to eat. And he comes by, and it turns out he had the transition station right next to me. We talked a little bit about the race and exchanged a few pleasantries. And then he realized that it was me who had given him the pickle juice. And he started thanking me and thanking me. He couldn't thank me enough. He shared that he was always cramping on hot weather runs like this, especially during triathlons, and nothing has ever helped. He has said he had tried everything he could think of, and that the pickle juice was going to be a game changer for him. So took some time. We went and grabbed some food together, and I gave him some more advice on how to use that for future races and how I pack it up and store it. And after that race, it was a great experience. I coined the term co-opetition, cooperation plus competition. And I thought that was a perfect example of co-opetition that day. I could have finished faster in competing, but instead I chose to stop and help a fellow athlete. And honestly, seeing him succeed just was, it made me feel more jazzed than, just getting that finisher medal and finishing 20 seconds faster. I felt like a coach that day. And I've always said a true coach puts the success of their athletes ahead of their own. And while this guy on the race course wasn't one of my athletes, it felt like it when I was there and giving him advice on the race course and afterwards. It felt a little, I was a little miffed getting passed by a person that I had helped. But in that moment, I learned so much about sportsmanship and about community and about how much I truly loved the sport of triathlon. That moment, that getting passed by somebody made it all worth it. Helping others, even in a competitive setting, can really help create a sense of shared victory and shared resilience. When we support each other, we all can go further. And that's true in sport, it's true in the firehouse, it's true in life. And there's science behind that. Social connection, if you read the article that I'm basing this podcast on, social connection releases a chemical called oxytocin in your system. And that helps you generate social bonds with people. It helps reduce stress. And the ripple effects of that kind of kindness will trickle out into your entire tribe. That oxytocin will carry on. And speaking of carrying on, there's my third story, which comes right out of the article that I wrote. My first ever 50-mile ultramarathon. It was a horrible day. It was the second week of October. I had planned that race because I thought it would be seasonably cool. Instead, it was unseasonably warm. It was 90 degrees, not a cloud in the sky, and humid. I had drained through 2 water bladders in my Camelback. I was drinking as much as I could at aid stations on the course. And still, 5 miles from the finish, I was exhausted and wondering what I had ever thought trying to sign up for a 50-mile ultramarathon. By that point, the course was so rocky that I was constantly stubbing my toes and almost tripping. And I was covered in salt stains from sweating and sweating and sweating for almost 12 hours in that 90-degree heat. And at that point, I see another runner limping and looking really upset. And again, the first responder instincts kicked in. I went in, I checked on her. She said she was doing fine. I offered her some encouragement, and then she admitted she was just having a big pity party. She had tripped, she had fallen, she thought she was just fine, but she was feeling sorry for herself, which is easy to do because your brain starts messing with you when your body is that exhausted. So I checked in with her and, made sure she was okay. And we, talked a little bit. And she said, I should feel free to just go on ahead. So I did. So I'm running down the course and I hear her starting to catch up to me and yelling out, "Hey, nice salt stains." So we ran alongside each other for a little while, talked about how salty and gritty we felt from the dirt and the sweat. And on that final stretch, when I was just so exhausted, I broke out of my run and started walking the last probably quarter mile. She started yelling, "Run, Salt. Come on, Salt, run." And just pushing me to finish strong. She refused to let me finish by myself. And we actually crossed that finish line. If you go back and you look at the race results, we finished at the exact same time because we finished right by each other, giving each other a high five. That nickname, Salt, I love it because it became a symbol for me of the way you can develop camaraderie and use humor in the face of what feels like an insurmountable struggle, just feeling exhausted. And it's an example of how I think humor and shared empathy can turn whatever miserable situation we're going through into a motivational moment. There's an old proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Now, up until this point in the race, I had been going it mostly alone. There were some spots on the trail where I couldn't see anyone in either direction. I was questioning whether I was even on the right course anymore, and I was actually starting to lose hope a little bit that I was even going to finish. But when I teamed up with that fellow runner who gave me the clever nickname, it was like we had both found new legs and we were carrying each other to the finish line. If you want to go far, go together. It's when we do things together as a tribe and get that uplifting and that encouragement from others that we can really do anything. And that is really what the power of connection lends to endurance events, and why I keep going back to racing, even though I know I'm not going to win. My motivation is to connect with people who are driven by the same things I do, who have the same passions I do, who are striving toward maybe the same goals that I am. And whether it's just sharing a conversation on the course and laughing about the sense of humor God has and where he's taken us, or sharing a training tip or a flask of pickle juice, or laughing over a nickname that we're shouting at each other in the final miles, these are the moments why I race. It's not about winning. It's about connecting. It's about feeling that collective resilience. It's about co-regulating through the highs and lows together. And that's true not only in endurance sports, it's true in the emergency services too. It's true in life. So to that client and to anyone else who wonders why I would enter a race that I know I'm not going to win, here's my answer. I race to find my tribe. I race to share a journey. I race to help others. And really, that is the victory. That is the finish line. I want to thank you for joining me on this episode. And if there's one thing that I hope you take away, it's that the real finish line isn't always the one with the timing mat and the medals. Sometimes it's the high five from a stranger. Sometimes it's that laugh that you share in the middle of a tough stretch, or that moment that you realize you're not running alone or you're not living alone. We don't have to do life alone. Whether you're out on a race course, whether you're working a long shift, whether you had a rough call, whether you're navigating a rocky, rough patch through life, remember, it's the connections we make, it's the empathy we show, it's the support that we offer that really builds resilience. That's what keeps us moving forward together. I would love to hear your stories. Have you ever experienced that co-opetition moment, or found an unexpected moment of camaraderie in the middle of challenge? Drop your story. Share it with me. Put it in the comments, send me a message, tag me on social media, text me, email me. Let's connect. Let's have some collective resilience together, one story at a time. And if you enjoyed this episode, make sure you subscribe, share it with a friend, leave a review. It helps more people find the show, and it helps others join in the conversation. So until my next episode, keep running your race. Keep lifting each other up. And remember, as always, fight wisely, age bravely,